If you don't know about our flyer deals on Instacart, this message is for you. Flyer deals are like strolling through your favorite store looking for deals, but instead, you're scrolling on your phone. Because getting delivery doesn't mean you have to miss out on in-store deals, like the creamer that doesn't upset your stomach, or the pasta sauce that you can't not buy when it's on sale. Download the Instacart app, shop flyers, and never miss a deal. Plus, get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, after his release from prison, Suave Gonzalez tries to navigate life on parole and his longtime friendship with a journalist. We'll talk about season 2 of Suave. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband, and yes, perennially the love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of the Piper Green series of cozy mysteries, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca.
And finally, our resident Doubting Thomas, author of the City Trilogy of novels, host of Rip Current, Strange Arrivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca.
So, Kevin?
Yeah.
This is Thursday's program.
It is.
What are we talking about on Monday's show?
Yeah, Monday we're going to talk about the documentary film on Netflix called The Quilters.
Oh, everyone's talking about that.
People are talking about that.
We're finally going to talk about it.
We're finally going to talk about it.
I mean, it's been out for a few days, but...
Oh, a few days.
I've been seeing the promos for a while, but I'm so excited to watch it.
I'm sorry, I guess I should have told you not to listen to Suave so we can immediately go to The Quilters.
It's okay. I'm excited. I'm totally excited to watch The Quilters. But I hear... Like it happened during the in-between our taping of our two shows, Toby told us he has an announcement to make. We don't know what it is. So Toby, when you make this announcement, we're going to be learning it at the same time as everyone else, even though we will have heard it before because we taped the show in advance. Toby Ball, what is your announcement?
Prepare to have your minds blown. So last fall, this journalist, Brandon R. Reynolds, and I did a brief 8-episode run of a show we called More Like Ancient Phalians,
No, you're
which
saying it wrong.
was More Like Ancient Phalians.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And so we did it on the Grab Bag Collab, which is Amber Hunt's sort of subscription podcast network. But we're going public. So it'll be on the public feed. More Like Ancient Phalians is kind of like an Ancient Aliens rewatch podcast where we kind of poke fun at the Ancient Alien stuff, but also we'll have done some research on like what the actual history is behind the Ancient Alien stuff, which is usually actually kind of interesting, which is why they use it in Ancient Phalians. We have guests from all walks of life. And it was pretty fun when we did the first 8 episodes. So we thought maybe we'd try and do another 25 or 30 and see how it goes. So anyway, it'll be dropping weekly on Fridays. Give it a shot and see what you think. Let me know.
That's incredible. Congratulations.
Thanks. Because I didn't have enough
work
to do.
Yeah.
Too much free time on my hands. So another podcast.
Well, you don't have to shoot that movie, so.
Yeah, it's funny because the History Channel is insane. Like the variety of programming they either have like a 10-part documentary about Grant or the foods that built America or Ancient Aliens. And weirdly,
I love foods that built America.
Weirdly, our friend Marcia Chatelain is on every History Channel
Whenever it has
show.
something they might do with McDonald's because she wrote that book about...
She was also on Grant.
Oh, okay. Both, all right.
She's on the heady ones and she's on the foods that built America, but she has not yet been on Ancient Aliens.
Because she's smart and trashy at the same time, which is why I love her. Yeah.
But she told me once it is her dream to be on Ancient Aliens.
Oh.
So yeah, I really feel for her and I'm hoping she gets it someday.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
So should we talk about something that could not be more different than the History Channel if we tried?
Sure. Let's
review
do that. How about we do that?
Let's review the thing we're supposed to be reviewing. Leading off.
It was like one of the movies that I watch in prison that you know it's a sad movie, but at the end, you know when they sit like in the steps and they see the sunlight, you know it's like something magical is going to happen.
7 7 years after his release, former juvenile lifer David Luis Suave Gonzalez is thriving as an inmate advocate and emerging podcaster. But despite his successes, he struggles with the new reality of supervised freedom and time lost in prison.
You're free. You could do whatever you want to do. All your pains and misery are gone. That's bullshit, man. My miseries and pains are just starting. Like, seriously, I never had this much misery and pain in my life when I was in prison. I didn't.
Journalist Maria Hinojosa also attempts to balance her often-fraught relationship with a longtime friend who's also her interview subject. Meanwhile, as Suave grows personally and professionally, he grapples with situations that could send him back to prison.
I'm not a pussy at all. What makes you think you could try me and I'm not going to react? Because if I get triggered, somebody's going to get hurt. Not fake hurt, real hurt. At this point, I don't give a fuck who go to jail or not.
After a Pulitzer Prize win for season 1, Futuro Media's Suave returns for a second season. This time, Suave wrestles with the complexity of freedom and lifetime supervision, all while searching for love, success, and a renewed sense of identity. It also follows Maria's attempts to nurture Suave, though tensions about their connections grow. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about plot points from Suave Season 2. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. So Kevin, Mr. Pulitzer. Suave, as we've learned, has turned into Mr. Pulitzer.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, why does Suave get to take the Pulitzer Prize home?
Don't know.
Because Nixon didn't get to take Woodward and Bernstein's Pulitzer home.
That's true, but he is an EP on the show.
Is he an EP on the show?
He's credited in the credits,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. Well, he was the one who stepped up for it, and now he's taking baths with it.
As one does.
As one does when they win a major award. It's a major award.
Yo, this is the adventures of Suave Gonzalez and his Pulitzer. So yeah, I'm in the tub with my Pulitzer. I'm ready to give my Pulitzer a shower because, we got to stay clean, man. We just can't be.
So, Toby, last time we had Maggie Freeling hosting season 1, and now we have Julieta hosting season 2, who was a producer on season 1. And Maria, of course, is now a subject again, and she reveals a lot about herself and doesn't always come off great in the podcast. I have questions about whether or not she should be just hosting it, but she is a subject here. That's how she's structured it. What do you think about her willingness to show some stuff in this podcast?
Yeah, I give her credit for being shown openly and honestly, I guess, because she does come off to at least me as seeming kind of needy at times. Like when, he's not returning her calls or texts, or he goes and does a podcast with somebody else.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking Maria, hold on. I was going to let me talk, Maria, because I don't think I need to finish. Hold on. Okay.
If you want to go there, you want to know what? Fuck you that you didn't call me.
You ain't going to apologize to me. I'm Maria, and all of a sudden nobody ghosts me. And I was like, all right, but.
And that's when I said to him, I was like, no one treats me this way, Suave. No one.
She really seems to really want to have her hand in his life decisions on a lot of things. As a matter of fact, at the end is like really trying to almost physically steer his life in a certain direction.
This is validating, Toby. Thank you.
Okay. I just found it a little uncomfortable at times. Like there are times I'm like,
yeah.
He's a grown-ass man. Like
he's in his 50s.
There's one time, and I'm sure we'll talk about what the issue is at length, but he says something that's kind of alarming to them. They have an entire production meeting where they have him to come in to like try and persuade him to act differently. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine the people I work with at iHeart, like having a production meeting to tell me like I've got to like start eating better or something.
Stop making that homemade granola,
Toby. After this taping, we have stuff to talk to you about.
Yeah, well, that's going to be awesome. I'm sure.
Totally agree with you. That was really fucked up in my opinion.
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that, Toby. This is so validating.
Why is that, Laura?
Yeah, no. So again, like our last review, I listened to this podcast twice because I was on the road to and from our northernmost prison this week, and I had like 6 hours in a car. I listened to it and I got really irritated with Maria this season. So then I was like, let me go back to our season 1 review and see if I was irritated with her then. And at that point, I was like, she's like a relative. She's like somebody that's like invested in him, but she's not really like a reporter. And in this season, I was like, this is like your overbearing aunt who doesn't respect your boundaries, who is trying to take over your life. And I found myself very frustrated with that this season because he obviously has a long-standing relationship with her, but she feels like sometimes I want to just be like, stop.
Leave the dude alone.
Like, stop. I thought Kevin was the guy he did the podcast with, right? She was like, you're talking to Kevin on the phone
Your new best
now.
friend, Kevin.
And I was like, stop.
Yeah.
And I felt like, unfortunately, I think there was a lot of like legitimate issues in this season of like things that we can look at for somebody that's been incarcerated for that long and what it's like to get out. For me, those were sort of overshadowed by my irritation at her intervention in his life.
Yes.
Yeah, I still find Maria's relationship with Suave to be somewhat problematic. I mean, there is...
Yes.
Although I don't dislike Maria. I'm sure she's very lovely. She's super accomplished, and this was a great idea for her to, I mean, out of the goodness of her heart, to stay in touch with this juvenile lifer, and then who expected this to happen. There's the professional aspect of the relationship, which we talked a lot about in season 1. She is completely transparent, and we understand that she can't be 100% objective about this subject because they are, whether they want to say friends or not, it's something more than just the usual transactional covering the subject kind of relationship. But, I think they're not hiding that. They never sort of have. And they're always like, there are years and years of phone calls that we don't hear, even within the last 7 years since he's been out, because they seem to record all of it. But it does seem like you say, if she loses contact with Suave or is otherwise excluded from his life or some way, she lashes out. And so that's not journalism. That's something else. And so even Suave, has his points where he's kind of like on the outs with her because my word's not Suave's, but she comes off as being overbearing.
So Maria called me like 7 o'clock in the morning. I didn't answer at first. She kept calling and calling and calling and calling. I was like, oh my God. Like she wouldn't stop calling.
She certainly has an attachment to Suave, and that's something that I always think they could go deeper in. I think that Maggie Freeling did a great job in season 1. I feel like she could only go so far.
But Maggie pushed back on Maria.
Right, she did push back on Maria.
This woman did
but
not.
I think that when you're talking about the boss, that it is hard to go as probably as far and as hard as you need to. This is just part of the Suave story with, Maria's relationship. It's unique to this thing, and it's one of the things that I remember. But let's just sort of take Maria out of the podcast. Let's, not make it a podcast thing. If I were Suave's buddy, I'd be like, I don't know, dude. I think, she's got a problem with boundaries.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. If they don't have an exclusivity agreement with him, she has no damn business telling him he can't make another podcast. He's not competing with their podcast, making a chat show about issues around incarceration. He's not. That's not what they do here. And it would actually be better for them if he had another project where he could talk about this project on that project. That's just a basic fact. The other issue is that it is fake that Maria can't do this in first person anymore. This first season made sense because she had a reporter relationship with him that she felt was evolving. So she stepped back. She's far beyond that now. They're just friends now, right? And so you either make a thing where you talk about your dying friendship with this formerly incarcerated person as he's finding his way in life, right? That is from her perspective. Or you make a thing that's about being formerly incarcerated where he's purely a subject. And she could still report that, in my opinion. I think this whole objectivity thing is completely bullshit here.
I don't think she could because she's too enmeshed.
Well, the lines have been so crossed, but like somebody could report that. But if he doesn't want to do it, don't make him do it. They have this thing where they don't listen to him the first time he says something over and over and over again. And he's such a conflicted, complicated, smart person. And what struck me about him right now and hearing him in this podcast, and I know a lot of it was taped a couple years ago, he's the busiest person I've ever heard about. Like, he's so busy and he's doing so many things. And he's taken on the responsibility and burden of continuing relationships with people who are still in prison. And he gives them his time. He's incredibly generous in this way. And she thinks that she deserves the same. But meanwhile, there's a power dynamic here that she's completely doesn't seem to be like aware of at all. The power dynamic is skewed. he knows that he has more power than these guys in prison, and she doesn't seem to understand that she has more power than him. And that's the thing about it that really kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Like, if he says something, says he wants something, like Toby said, he's a grown-ass man. He should be able to just have that thing.
Like, you should be able to have a subscription to Patreon if that's what you want.
Oh, wow.
Oh, shit.
If you're a grown-ass man and you're looking for more exclusive content.
We're in the business section out of nowhere.
Oh my God.
Wow.
It just seems so natural.
Laura
Hold on, I
Bricker
gotta
did
pull
it.
up my Amazon shit. Hold on a second.
We're a little early, but we're
Laura took
here.
everybody off guard.
I loved it. I love
Is that
it.
why you were hemming and hawing? You were trying to get on mic just to do that?
No, I was watching and I was like, oh, this is the time to say it.
This is the time to get the business section going and tell people one of the ways you can support this podcast is by joining us on Patreon for all sorts of exclusive content. The address is patreon.com/partners in crime media. People can't remember. It's like, hey, we say it in the first 1 second of every episode. You can support
People
this podcast.
skip that.
People
Because there's ads before it and shit. They skip it.
Oh, yeah, they forget it. All right, but here's the great things that you can get. You can get the Crime Writers on After Show, Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast, Married with Podcast, our relationship advice podcast, and right now going hot and heavy is Rebecca Lavoie's Readathon, bringing you near daily updates on the Karen Reed
Let me tell you
trial.
something, Kevin.
What? No,
there are people who give zero
no.
shits about this case who love the readathon. So many people.
Perfect. You also can get Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast, in which Laura Bricker solves mysteries, or at least mysteries to her, in her quaint AF town of Exeter, New Hampshire. Also, if you joined us as a deep diver, you can listen to and take part in Toby's recording of the deep dive. The last book that Toby covered was American Prison, and the next book is American Fire. Is that right?
Yeah, we actually taped 2 days ago. It was very fun.
And I'm bending this time-space continuum here. It was a good discussion?
Yes.
He doesn't know yet.
It was an awesome discussion. We had a great time. Some or all of Lauren Bright Pacheco, Elon Green, and Deb Chudica and I had a lovely conversation. It was very insightful. Lots of laughs, a little bit of crying, everything.
A little bit of crying. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. We also have an Amazon storefront where you can see some of our favorite things. Rebecca, what are this week's Amazon recommendations?
Well, Kevin, this is going to change our life.
Okay.
I just got these today and installed them today, and you didn't even notice.
What is it?
You know how we have those runner rugs that are always in the wrong position? They're just like sideways.
Yeah, they move around, slide around, yeah.
Because the dogs walk on them and stuff. I bought these under carpet, non-slip corners on Amazon, and I put them under the corners of the rugs, and I don't know if you noticed this today, but that runner in the hallway did not move an inch today.
Amazing, my
The two
wife.
in the kitchen, they're just staying where they're supposed to be.
Wow. If you want to change your life,
Jeez.
everybody, check that out. Toby, what are your listener-inspired Toby Ball's deep cut recommendations?
I don't know if I can follow up on that.
No, you
Kevin.
can't.
That was pretty...
Life-changing.
That actually felt very Toby Ball deep cut.
Yeah, well, hang on to your hats, because we're starting off with the 14 PCS Geology Rock Pick Hammer Kit Gold Mining and Prospecting Equipment Tool Musette Bag, 22 ounces, hammer and digging chisels, shovel magnifying glass W.
W.
Just a W.
What does the W mean?
Ran out of characters.
Win.
Yeah.
It's the win.
It's a win. Yeah, I don't know.
14 pieces.
Something.
All right.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch. And my guess is there's one hammer and there's a bag. So then there's 12 chisels.
It's 12 chisels. All right. That probably has to have like one of those little brushes. Like the brush I used to clean off the plate when I'm umpiring. Yeah.
So possibly 11 chisels and a brush, or maybe 2 brushes. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of different ways that could shake out. So the other one, Homedics Back and Neck Massager Portable Shiatsu All Body Massage Pillow.
Oh, I was going to say
What?
that's a
I
vibrator.
think I've tried that.
With heat targets upper and lower back, neck, and shoulders. Lightweight 4.
All right.
Yeah,
I just
I
heard
think I've
shiatsu, and I'm like, that's a vibrator. And then you said pillow, and I'm
No,
like, oh,
it's
that's
not.
actually
It's
a
for
massage
your back.
pillow.
I think I've tried that.
Yeah.
Well, it says back and neck massager, but then it says all body massage pillow. And so I don't know what to make of this.
Can you straddle
And then
it?
Can you
and then it says
straddle it?
lower back, neck, and shoulders.
The answer is yes. You
and
probably can
other
try it.
parts.
If you send it to me, I'll review it.
You can use it as a saddle.
Listen, I'm
apparently.
sure this person 100% got this for their back and neck.
Look at Toby. Nobody heard him say that.
Shiatsu.
I heard it.
And you were like, you know what a shiatsu is.
Yeah.
Magic wand, shiatsu massager.
That's
The magic wand is not shiatsu. That's the one that's like a giant microphone.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I had an elderly lady friend one time who was like, somebody gave this to me, and they gave her like a recycled one from like the old days that had to plug in the wall.
A
And she
recycled
was like,
vibrator?
I'm using it on my foot because it's for my foot pain. And like her husband was downstairs and was like, what the frick is going on upstairs? Because she had it on the floor and it was going, So, Toby,
I think you're better off getting a used electric toothbrush.
you're better off ordering from our Amazon list and getting something that doesn't plug into the wall.
She got a used vibrator to use as a foot massager. Is that what I'm getting out of this?
And the fact that she actually believed that is quite classic.
That's what it's for.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, that is what it was made for originally.
Yeah, it's
Is it?
those off-label uses that aren't great.
They are
my
great. What are you
God.
talking about? They're fantastic.
All right, yeah, you can shop us first when you go to Amazon, Amazon.com, and go /shop/Crime Writers On. We earn commissions on qualified purchases.
All right, Kevin, before we end this very, very educational business section, by the way, here we are criticizing a Pulitzer-winning podcast. In the business section, we're talking about vibrators.
Someone stepped on a vibrator.
All right, Kevin.
Yeah.
Do we have any Patreon patron saints of the week this week?
Our Patreon patron saints are Krista Bradshaw and Christine Fleckles. Bless you.
Christine, thank you so much for supporting us on Patreon. Thank you for everyone who's joined us recently on Patreon. There's a lot of people who've just sort of like come into the fray, and we really appreciate all of you because if we do this podcast, we put it out in the world for free, but it isn't free to make, and this is how we can keep doing it. So thank you so, so much. Kevin, does thus end our business section?
Thus ends the business section.
I'm going to go ahead and fade that music out right now. So Kevin,
Yes.
who's the sponsor for this episode of Crime Writers On?
Oh, we welcome a new sponsor. It's Rula Health.
Ooh.
Finding the right mental health care should be simple and affordable, but for many, it is not. You got long wait times and high costs, and so that means like finding the right provider, it can really make getting help feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so that's where Rula comes in. Rula connects you with in-network licensed therapists that accept most major insurance, right? So it has been a very trying time for many people.
Yes.
And I always say, you don't maybe necessarily want to take everything that you're feeling,
I put it on Facebook in a post.
yeah, or tell your sister who's going to go because she might be the problem, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so like you really want to talk to a professional, find somebody that you're comfortable with. That's where Rula comes in. They partner with a network of over 10,000 therapists and
Wow.
psychiatrists nationwide, enabling you to find your personalized solution and the right therapist for you based on your needs, preferences, and state requirements. So every therapist is carefully vetted, so you are in expert hands. And for the in-network covered care for most major insurances, you pay for as little as $15 per session.
Wow. So, join the thousands who have already turned to Rula for support on their journey to better mental health and well-being. Getting started is so easy. Just visit rula.com/CWO
CWO.
today. That's RULA.com/CWO
CWO.
to connect with a licensed therapist who truly cares. Your mental health matters. Individual costs depend on your insurance and deductible. Kevin,
Yes, Rebecca.
who's the next sponsor for this program?
Okay, we're brought to you by our friends at Hello Fresh.
Hello, Fresh.
Hola Fresco. That's what you used to say all
I
the
know,
time.
hola, Fresco.
Yeah, so fresh air, sunshine, and good food. That is what spring is all about.
Mm-hmm.
You just opened up the deck here. We got that little picnic place to sit. Need to have
You mean
some...
my sophisticated outdoor table? Kevin?
Yeah. So we need to make some stuff quick. Bring it right out there. HelloFresh makes it easy for those home-cooked meals. They take no time at all.
Plate it up beautifully.
Plate it up beautifully. They've got great recipes like pasta primavera, chicken Dijon, and pecan crusted trout.
Yum.
As well as over 100 seasonal snacks, sides, and treats. Well, the final kid, we kicked him out.
Yes.
I
We're
mean,
empty nesters now.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really kick him out, but like it was time to go. And
He moved across town.
moved across town. So you know what that means? An adjustment to the meal plan,
Yes.
which was so very easy to do at HelloFresh. Plus, they are also able to get us, items that we can take a little more time to make, but on the nights when we're recording,
Boom. Nice meal.
Nice meal.
Feel great with meals that fit your spring schedule and make the season even more delicious. Go to HelloFresh.com/CWO10FM.
CWO10FM.
Right now to get 10 free
10
meals.
free meals.
With a free item for life. That's HelloFresh.com/CWO10FM. One free item per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as a discount on the first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. Kevin, who's the next sponsor for this program?
Oh, we're brought to you by our friends at Quince.
My best friends at Quince, you mean?
Yeah, look, we've been talking about sweaters, but now as the temperatures climb, it's easy to fall into the same old routine. Those familiar tank tops, worn-in shorts, worn-out shorts. The usual lineup, but Quince offers an effortless upgrade, elevated, easy prices that instantly refine the everyday uniform without the extra effort. So Quince is able to provide at great prices, couture, items that look great when you're out walking around. But Rebecca, you like the stuff that Quince offers that nobody gets to see.
That's right. Kevin, I just got some underwear from Quince, and it is rad. And it was so inexpensive. It was like a pack of underwear for like a really low price. I also did order a linen shirt, by the way. But the underwear is spectacular. It's got 5-star reviews for a reason. I endorse it personally.
Yeah, but don't forget, you still can get great things for the summer, like European linen shorts and dresses.
And shirts.
$30. Italian leather platform sandals.
Nice.
And so much more. And they cut out the middleman so they can pass the savings on to you.
Hell yeah. Treat your closet to a little summer glow up with Quince. Go to quince.com/crime for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/crime to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime. All right, so Toby, I think there's some interesting stuff in the podcast, and all of it comes from Suave, in my opinion. He talks about parole and how that provides him with some structure, but then there's also this drama that he tries to explain around his stolen car and his feelings of betrayal that it was stolen by somebody who's working in the same space that he's working in. What did you think about that? Because that was sort of like a big event this season.
Well, to me, in some ways, this seemed like the crux of the whole thing. The first 3 episodes in my mind were kind of meh. Like I was like, is this just going to be sort of a recounting of what his day is like or his like current life is like? But then something happens to his car. He gets like into a fender bender, and somebody who works in sort of the community justice coalition or group or movement or whatever in Philadelphia that he works with is like, oh, I can hook you up with this guy who can do it pretty cheap. So Suave says, sure. And then his car disappears. And he is not happy about it in the slightest.
Y'all poke the teddy bear, now y'all got the grizzly bear. You want to fuck with me? That's how it's going to go down. It's on site. It's not going to be, let's talk outside. It's on site. Where I don't know fuck where we at. It's going to be on site.
I can't remember exactly how he puts it, but he's like, I'm going to beat this guy, and it's not going to be like one of those like funny little beatings. It's going to be like serious. And Maria and producers, but particularly Maria, just completely flip out, which is understandable because it seems as though, you know, this is obviously going to violate his parole and put him back in prison. And this is when he has that meeting with the production team where one of the like sort of junior producers is like, maybe you should be making a decision. Well, in this state of mind, he's like,
maybe you shouldn't talk, junior producer.
Yeah.
I don't mean to sound like a toxic manager, but there are times when you should not talk.
The whole idea that your production team is in on this call it's
insane.
Like, I don't understand it in the slightest, but it felt to me like the first 3 episodes could have been combined to one episode leading up to this thing, which is like, he's doing all this stuff. All these people are leaning on him. All this stuff is going on. And he is willing to throw it away for this car repair that just seems like such a minor thing. But instead we go through these very long 3 episodes of like, oh, now he's at this place. He's at this place. He's getting a Pulitzer. He's got a girlfriend. He's teaching a class.
He's got a king bed. We saw Suave's bed. A big bed with his girlfriend.
Do you saying like he doesn't have to fuck between the Coke machine and the other? Because that's where they get it.
No, that was super fun.
Yeah. We used to have sex in prison. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought this was like 10 times as interesting as anything else that was going on in this podcast. Was this little thing, which is you run into like not a completely minor, but not life-changing experience. And is this going to change the course of the rest of your life because you're going to make a rash decision about it? Or are you going to reconsider and all this stuff? And to me, it just feels like there's so much interjection of opinions from people with whom he has more of a professional relationship. And then the whole thing gets resolved. Just was like, oh, the cops found it. So, now you're off the hook. You got your car back. And then we kind of move on.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is where I was like, this is sort of like, there's that whole book, The Body Keeps Score. And it's about people that have experienced trauma and how you sort of flip back to what's comfortable and to like what you know, even if you think you've moved on and you've made progress, like your body goes back to familiar patterns. So his familiar pattern for dealing with conflict was established in prison. That is how he knows how to resolve conflict, is the way that he resolved conflict in prison. He hasn't had a lot of conflict since he got out. Everyone's like, hey, Suave, we love you. You got a Pulitzer. Oh, look, here's your kitty cat. Here's your girlfriend. Here's your new friends. All these things where you're going to teach college. All of a sudden, he's got a conflict. His body, his psyche goes back to, how did I handle this when I was in prison? This is where I learned how to deal with conflict. And this is how we dealt with shit there. And we're going to basically have our own code of how we deal with people who take advantage of us, who wrong us, who take our shit. If somebody takes your shit in prison, you're going to go fucking get it. And he like flips back into that. But what was frustrating about that for me was, like you guys said, the other people on the outside that are now his voices, that bouncing ideas off him and trying to sort of have a say in what's happening. They're not really understanding that. They're trying to control it. They're not really understanding that, like, this dude comes by this honestly. He spent 30 years in prison. This is where he grew up. This is where he learned how to resolve conflict. And this is how he resolved conflict effectively under the prison system, right? So like, that's how I looked at it. It was like, this is like a case study right here. But I was really frustrated about the outside voices that weren't allowing that part of the story to come through, that they were instead trying to be like, no, you can't do this.
He almost fucked up. Yeah.
But I totally get Suave's reaction to the stolen car and his frustration, because I too can see myself fucking losing my mind over something like that.
Hence his relationship with this guy in our town.
Yeah. Hence my relationship with my father-in-law. Yeah, I mean, I totally can see that, being frustrated and just really lashing out. Even if you have a very long fuse, I'll tell you, it's not a good look. I own it. But the difference is, though, is like when you say someone's going to get real hurt, not fake hurt, or whatever that was. It's like there's way much more on the line for Suave than there is for me. I too am like, oh yeah, I'm going to go on social media and blast you. That's about as far as I can go with it. But you're right.
Or you can go to court.
Or I go to court, whatever, right? Yeah. Suave, I get where he was coming from, because he felt helpless, he felt taken advantage of, and he's trying to figure out, what do you do? And, you're right, Lara, that like he's 50-something years old. He did not grow up in an environment where you could talk about those feelings and that you could find constructive ways of handling that kind of conflict. He grew up in prison, right? So he doesn't have those tools yet. Fortunately, he didn't do something that wound up, violating his lifetime parole and going back. But I do get that. I don't think that means that the next little thing that happens, that he might actually do something and wind up in prison. But it opens up this whole discussion about, what does it mean to be on parole for life?
Right.
To be under supervision for life. When you have guardrails like that, where if you do fuck up, it could be for something small, like having a drink.
Or a joint. Which, by the way, the podcast says they were smoking pot after the Pulitzers, and he probably wasn't, but I don't think they should have included that, because I could have gotten him impaired.
And also when they include that he's drinking, I'm like, they're fucking selling him down the river.
Maybe.
But he made his own choices. But
yeah, and I will say, the thing that was interesting to me, and Toby, you alluded to this, is that he says, and this is what we all do, but he obviously does it to a greater degree because of the various lives he lived, that he is a different person with Maria making this podcast than he is with other people. I mean, by the way, we all do that. One of the most troubling scenes to me in the podcast was when she freaked out because he went to the hospital and didn't tell her.
I've been in the trauma unit for about a day and a half now.
Oh my God, Suave. And now is when you're calling me? A day and a half? Why didn't anybody call me?
I thought I was going to be all right.
Oh God, Suave, what the fuck?
That's like my mom does that thing all the time where she's just like, you didn't tell me you were taking out the trash today. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, he's like, so he definitely, he wants to be different things to different people. He wants to try out.
That was a serious trip to the hospital, though.
Yeah, but he wants to try out different characters in his life because he doesn't know who he is. And he's wanting to try it out. To me, the big miss in the story is like there were inklings of things that were interesting, like the story about his inmate friend who taught him to read, who's now
old head
struggling. Who's struggling with cancer and trying to get compassionate release. Like that's an issue about the prison system. That's interesting that was brought out there. You know, him talking about how parole is in some ways helpful because it provides structure, but it also limits freedom is an interesting standalone kind of story about the criminal legal system. But to me, it's like you have to either, I don't know if you have to choose. I mean, this podcast does a lot of different things, but it's dominated by the relationship stuff. Like it becomes completely dominated by the relationship stuff. And I'm like, that to me is where some of this stuff that is interesting about Suave comes out, but at the same time, we're not given the chance to listen to him. Like, so it's almost like the stakes, the going back to prison thing, breaking the parole, it's like, it feels like, and I know this is not what they were saying, but it feels like, hey, we told this whole story about you and your success, and we won a big award for it, and now we're going to continue your story, and you are going to be fucking it up for us if you go back to prison. I know that's not what they're saying.
No, I think it'd be a great ending.
It's how it came.
It's a fantastic ending.
It's how it came across to me. If they were really bad,
they'd say, you better go back to jail because we don't know what episode 8 is going to be.
No, but like I almost like it felt like the stakes it's more than friendship, and that those lines are weird. And again, he's saying out loud, I am different people with different people, and that should be okay. But Toby, you had a note too about parole providing guardrails and Suave in some ways leaning on parole. What did you think about that?
Yeah, well, it comes up when he finds out that there's somebody else that he knew who is getting out without parole. And he starts saying that he thinks that's a terrible idea, that he's really worried. And that, he feels as though he is, although frustrated by, is also kind of aided by the guardrails because it kind of proscribes what he can and can't do in a way that, again, and I think it plays out in the whole thing with the car, is that the consequences for him of doing something about the car are dire because he's on parole, whereas this other guy could do that. And I assume if he got caught, the consequences would still be dire. But, he can drink and smoke weed and stuff, I assume, or will eventually. So it seems to him like it's a way of keeping out of trouble, or at least small trouble, and that it's beneficial in that way. And I think that's, probably the way that people who are for parole probably look at it, is like, look, you need this. I'm not saying that that's the actuality of it. Yeah. I mean, I think there is a lot about controlling people, but I think for people who are trying to rationalize it to themselves, or people who are sort of do-gooders who are for parole, I mean, I think that's the argument you make, is that this is kind of enforcing standards of behavior that are going to be helpful for people when they get out in order to live lawful lives, the lives we want them to, or what have you. So I thought that was kind of that, again, these are the kind of things where if there had been more of them and then less, why didn't you tell me you went to the hospital? I think it would have been a more interesting show, because I think, he obviously he's smart. He's thoughtful. He spends a lot of time talking to people about this stuff. He spends a lot of time counseling people about this stuff. And that to me is kind of what's interesting. And maybe this other podcast he's doing with this other guy would give you more of that. But I was kind of left wanting sort of more of his insight and less of his other stuff that we kind of, and a lot of it is about his relationship with Maria. And that's kind of fine, but it didn't hold my interest that much. And I kind of found some of it to be a little troubling or frustrating. And sometimes I was like, what if I had a friend in my life who was just like
Yeah.
Why haven't you called me? Why don't you answer my
don't owe me
text? Why don't you tell me when you went here? Why don't you tell me when you went there? What are you trying to do? I thought I was your friend. I'd be like, yo, chill. My friends are like, chill, and they accept that, I'm going to do certain things with them, and I don't have to tell them about stuff all the time.
Exactly. So, Laura, isn't this another kind of like, in some ways, he talks about never being free, right? Or he talks about not wanting to drive. He talks about all this other stuff. And don't you think he just wants to be able to be different people with different people, go to the hospital, and not have to return every phone call he receives, even though he's taking incoming phone calls all the time? He doesn't owe people stuff, right?
Well, he doesn't. And I think, the question is, I think there was a theme through this of freedom. And are we ever free? And he talks about he's in his apartment and it's really just like an upmarket prison cell. But the question of you're out, you're in the world, you're not in prison anymore, but yet there's the restrictions of parole. There's the expectations that Maria has on him. There's the expectations of the people that are incarcerated that want to talk to him. It's like he's out, but he still feels obligated to help the people that he left behind. He's got the survivor's guilt of the people that are still incarcerated, that are still there. He's got this relationship with Maria that I think is very problematic. He's got his apartment, which is his first real space of his own. But even within his first real space of his own, he's like, I have to have that routine because I remember the bullhorn in the morning and morning head count. And so me and the kitty cat do the morning head count now because this is what I'm used to doing. So it's it's an evolution of he's been institutionalized for so long.
Yeah.
And there's parts of that are going to be really hard to ever kind of get out of that sort of makeup of his body DNA of what he's doing every day. And I think that's part of that that's really interesting.
So, Kevin, we did have a host switch this season, finally. I think we should just discuss that briefly. Julieta Martinelli is the new host of season 2. Maggie Freeling, of course, who we know very well, was the host of season 1. What do you think about this change of roles for Julieta? She had been a producer on season 1, and now she's the host.
Yeah, well, like I said earlier, I do miss Maggie. I think she did a great job, and I'm glad that they included the clip of her and Julieta from season 1, where they're in Suave's old neighborhood, and they're running away from the guy who ate breakfast cereal or something, something rather dramatic. But I think she does a good job.
Let's get the fuck out of here.
Let's get the fuck out of here. Yeah. And it's funny because now that you know that Maggie is 3'6".
Yes.
Her
2'10".
2'10", covered in tattoos. It's kind of it's a fun visual to me.
She's the cutest.
But Julieta, I think she does a great job. She has her own relationship with Suave, right? So she can make comments on the Maria situation. But I think that she's more than just an observer of the Suave-Maria relationship. She's part of a triangle, right? And I'd love to hear more of her takes about that. I do enjoy the parts where we go there to talk about, again, and not to swing back to Maria's interactions with Suave, but to the extent that she does sort of probe there, I think that's good. But I think we all agree that we find that way more interesting sometimes than just Suave's advocacy work. Or, hey, Grady, you went to Puerto Rico. That sounds like fun.
Instacart is here to keep you on the couch this basketball season. With pre-game rituals and post-game interviews, it's hard to find time for everything else. Let Instacart handle your game day snacks or weekly restocks with delivery in as fast as 30 minutes. Because it's bad luck to be hungry on game day. Download the Instacart app today and enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 orders. Service fees apply for 3 orders in 14 days. Excludes restaurants.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know. Should they check out Suave Season 2? Laura Bricker, thumbs up or thumbs down for Suave Season 2?
I'm going to go thumbs sideways on this season of Suave. I'm somebody that works in the criminal justice system. I really appreciate any opportunity that we have to hear about somebody that has been incarcerated for a long time, re-entering the world, doing well, how they're acclimating on the outside. I think what I struggled with in this season of this podcast, which I had started to struggle with in the first season, but this season it really started to hit me a little bit harder, was this relationship between Suave and Maria, who was the journalist who originally corresponded with him and is now sort of a fellow subject in this season, but a very strong presence. And I feel like for me, I think this either needed to be a story about Suave and Maria, or I would have preferred to see a story about Suave and his re-entry and some of the issues that he's dealing with, like the survivor's guilt and desire to stay connected to folks that he was incarcerated with, how he's working in the world, how he's dealing with conflicts in the outside world after having dealt with conflicts in the prison system, where there's a very different code of how you deal with conflicts. So I struggled a lot. And I'll say this is a personal thing. I struggled a lot because I've had people in my personal life who steamroll my boundaries. And I felt like there was a lot of boundary steamrolling in this towards Suave. And I felt kind of like, man, I've been where you've been. But I liked hearing where he was now. I liked having the update. I think for me, I just wish we had chosen one or the other of, is this a story about Suave and Maria? Is this a story about Suave and the outside? Because I think that, again, that steamrolling kind of took over the theme of the podcast in a way that could have been more powerful if we had sort of fine-tuned what the focus of this podcast was and just him reacclimating after 30 years incarcerated. So I'm a thumbs sideways.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for Suave Season 2?
Yeah, I think like Laura, I struggled with this. I think there's stuff there for this to be interesting in kind of a non-meta way. Again, I think it is kind of distracting, the relationship between Suave and the whole, I think, production team. It feels very strange to me. That being said, he's an interesting person. I thought the times when he was giving his insights into things, I thought were interesting. There is a sort of big to-do in the middle of this, which I think is really sort of the crux of the program, which I thought was interesting and suspenseful and brought up a whole bunch of different things that I thought were very worthwhile. But sort of the beginning that leads into it, and we've listened to one of the like 2 episodes that follows this incident. And quite honestly, I didn't find that very rewarding. I'll give it a thumb sideways. I thought the middle section of it would have gotten an easy thumbs up from me, but I think the stuff kind of around it was less interesting in a way that just didn't seem like it needed to be that way. I mean, it just seems like there's enough interesting stuff going on that you could have made that stuff interesting instead of like, oh, look what he's up to. So anyway, for that reason, I am a thumbs sideways.
Kevin Flynn.
I'm going to go mild thumbs up. I can see what you're saying. We all loved season 1. We were 4 thumbs up, but we did think that it was uneven. And I think that we have that here again, where some of the stories fit better and some of this whole, some episodes are better than others. Some of the ways that they go down, some of the paths that they travel. Suave and Maria's life story, the way they became friends, what happened when he got out of prison, that's an extraordinary tale. And Suave is entitled to an ordinary life at this point. I don't think there's a lot to be gained from a life that requires seasons 3 and 7 and 26 of Suave. It's good enough to go on with your life, and at some point you can stop recording. And I think you got to know when that time is. Let's say we haven't heard the 7th and final episode, so we don't really know how they're going to land the plane. But, again, I think that the interesting part of this story has always been the relationship between the journalist Maria and her feelings for Suave. And like we see the friction of that. And that's really something that's real. That's authentic. I wanted more of that to see how that plays out. However, it's not poorly put together. The host is good. There are just some things I wish they'd gone deeper into. So I'm going to be a mild thumbs up.
Yeah, I'm a thumbs sideways. And the main reason I'm not a thumbs down is because this is really beautifully made. It's well put together. If you do find the story compelling, you're not going to get a higher quality version of a podcast than this kind of podcast. It's just really beautifully made. That being said, I really struggled to figure out what it was about, what I was listening to, why I was listening to it. It tries to be too many things. And my thing is either hand Maria the mic or hand Suave the mic. How interesting would it have been if he hosted this season, right? And, you heard about things from his perspective and he was given the narrative lead, even if other people were really supporting him and producing it and they were taping all the time. Julieta is wasted in this, in my opinion. she's doing arbitration a lot of the time, and she's transparently doing arbitration, and that's very tiring because the reason she has to do it is because she has a boss who wants to make a show about her failing relationship with this guy that she needs to change the boundaries of, that she needs to listen to him. Granted, he's not perfect either. I'm not saying that he'd be easy to hang out with either. I know he's got a lot to say, a lot going on, but that relationship sort of consuming what could have been a really compelling narrative with a man centered in it who we just hear from as being cast as sort of this pain in the ass that isn't good enough friends with me. That's disappointing to me, considering, I mean, I put Suave season 1 on my top 10 list. I really, really loved it. I don't know why they decided to make a second season about this. So yeah, I'm thumb sideways, beautifully made, but the podcast was confounding. All right, that's going to do it for us. But before we go, Laura Bricker, do we have a cat of the week this week?
This one caught my eye in our official Crime Writers On podcast discussion group from Seb Alex. We came home to a crime scene. Our cat murdered a mouse.
Ooh.
And the picture one is the tabby cat sitting on the stairs like, who, me? And then the other pictures are a picture of the stove with a lovely aqua teal teapot covered in blood. And then the side of the sink also covered in blood splatter.
Oh, wow.
I'm looking at the
that was
crime
like that
scene
American
photo.
Marriage thing.
Almost as bad.
It's really bad.
It was. I'm waiting for some crime scene tape, and I'm waiting for some apologies from this cat who looks totally like he's like, whatever.
Yeah, this cat's shameless. This cat's
like, yeah, yo, give me better cat food. I won't have to kill mice.
All right, Laura Bricker, if folks want to reach out to you to submit any kind of animal to be cat of the week, literally any kind. It doesn't have to be your animal. Of course, you can put it in our Facebook discussion group, but if they want to reach out to you directly, how can they find you online?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Instagram and Blue Sky. And last week's cat of the week, Saul, the lookalike of my cat, the whole neighborhood was up in arms about it. Saul showed up at a neighbor's door. I had counseled Saul's owner on what to do and everything. And thank goodness, my cat, Rocky Flintstone, can now look out the window and wish he was free, like Saul the cat that still gets to go outside after he ran away.
Toby Ball, folks want to reach out to you and say congratulations on your new podcast becoming public and making more of it. How can they find you online?
At Toby Ball NH on Blue Sky.
What about you, Kevin?
I'm at Kevin P. Flynn.
You can follow me everywhere. X, Blue Sky, Instagram, at Reb Lavoie. I encourage you to join our incredible community in our amazing Facebook discussion group. Just go to Facebook, find our page. There's a link there to join the group. Get everything we make behind the paywall at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media. There's like how many episodes of stuff back there now, Kevin?
More than 800 individual episodes.
And crazy. Our theme song was composed and performed by Ty Gibbons, and our editor is the excellent Livy Burdett. The EP of this show is Kevin. This show is recorded in Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement, where, frankly, we also take baths with our Pulitzer Prizes. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
Toby, I will just say that you are looking the best lit you ever have.
You ever looked. I agree.
Yes.
You're not yellow.
I don't know what's going on.
The lights are off behind
Whatever you did,
yeah.
time of day, you look, you can
know what?
see
His
it.
background is dark. That's why.
Right, the color on your face. Whatever you did, you look marvelous.
All right.
Partners in Crime Media.